Good afternoon. Ben, how is Pep shaping up after back-to-back defeats?
Yeah, it's been a bit of a tough one to swallow the last couple of matches. I think there was frustration with on-field decisions in the game against Newcastle a week or so ago when they were beaten up at St James's Park, and then Pep made those 10 changes in midweek for the visit of Bayer Leverkusen in the Champions League, which ultimately led to defeat, a very flat performance, which even when they threw on some of the big guns in the second half, the likes of Phil Foden, Jeremy Doku and Erling Haaland, all of which who were having fantastic seasons, they weren't able to turn the tide, and it was a really disappointing one. And actually after the game was fascinating because Pep sat there in that post-match press conference. He was very honest. He took the blame on his own shoulders for making too many changes. He says perhaps he was maybe even too nice in the sense that he has a lot of players who are training really well, players he believes in, that he threw into the starting 11, and that perhaps he shouldn't have made as many changes as he did at that time, and some of those players perhaps weren't worthy of getting the starting berth. Well, he did roll back a little bit on that today because those players, it must have been difficult to hear him say that and his response to their performance in midweek. And they're not necessarily off the Christmas card list, though, because Pep Guardiola says, despite suggesting he was too nice, he's not going to change anytime soon.
No. Mom and Dad made me a beautiful person. I'm so nice. No, and it's not about that. It just we didn't try. So in football, when you play on the green, so you have to try things that we didn't try. Yeah, maybe I'll have a theory to rotate. You have to rotate because it's impossible to sustain. But I thought I have a lot of confidence of them. Still, right now, I have a lot. Football, you have to play. Defensive, offensive, you have to try. And you lose in the actions, you did it. They play to be safe, to don't be, I'm making mistakes and I want to be noticed, and that's why it's so difficult. It was a good lesson for me. So even with quite experience as a manager, I have a good lesson for me for the future.
So how does Pep see their own title credentials, Ben, with City 7 points off the leaders Arsenal?
Yeah, I mean, rewind 7 days and I was stood in this position. It was after the international break. City, you remember, had gone into that break, cutting the gap. Arsenal drawn at Sunderland. City had thrashed Liverpool, and you felt momentum was with them. And then the results over the weekend saw City beaten at Newcastle. Arsenal followed that up with a comprehensive and resounding win in a North London derby. And then with City losing again in midweek in the Champions League and Arsenal winning, you do really feel as though the momentum has shifted right back into North London, and City are left scratching their heads a little bit with the gap extending in the league. But I think, a bit like to echo the comments of Enzo Maresca just a moment ago, I think the managers that are chasing Arsenal are trying to remind themselves that it is a long season. You can't win the title now, but you can lose it. And on that basis, I think Pep realises they have to start winning games very quickly, and that starts tomorrow here against Leeds United.
I know the distance is already there, and Arsenal is so strong. We see it in game by game in the Premier League and the other ones, and start to see how it's getting better as a team. We know the competition is tough. It's not about, of course, disappointing results, but it's always I'm talking most in the performance, and of course the results helps to have better performance. But I'm not much disappointed about Newcastle, but the last one, yeah.
You mentioned getting back on track, Ben, and there is a good opportunity to do so this weekend against the Leeds team that don't travel well.
No, they don't. They look a bit short of confidence, particularly away from home, don't they? The Ellen Road factor, obviously a huge one for them. City will be relying on the Etihad factor and their dominance. They do have a great record at home in spite of that midweek loss. And I think in terms of the way Pep is going to line up, he's learnt his lesson, as he said, this week. I would imagine there'll be almost maybe another 10 changes, flipping the team back perhaps to the one that started against Newcastle. The one player you'd say would almost certainly keep his place, though, is Nico Gonzalez. He wasn't able to be rested in midweek because Rodri is still not fit. He's basically, after recovering from that serious ACL injury that got him back to something like fitness in the summer, he struggled to regain full fitness, and that led to a hamstring issue which he picked up in October. Because of that, that's kept out his return. He was in and out of the matchday squad for a little while, but he's been absent for the last few games. Tomorrow again comes too early for him, so you'd imagine Nico Gonzalez keeps his place as that kind of like defensive pivot pivot in the Manchester City team. And apart from that, I'd imagine you'd see the likes of Haaland, Foden, Doku all coming back into the side. City know they can't slip up now. They have to win, win and win again. Big week ahead. Leeds, a trip to Fulham in midweek, and then Sunderland, the visitors to the Etihad in a week's time. And City, I think, will be very much targeting 9 points to try and keep the pressure on Arsenal at the top.
Ben, thank you very much.
To that, to talk about what is the next game, and after that we'll see. So I know the distance is already there, and Arsenal is so strong. We see it in game by game in the Premier League and the other ones, and start to see how it's getting better as a team, and we'll see.
And can I ask you about Leeds and Lucas Nemecha? He's a player that you had here quite a while ago. What have you made of him this season, and what have you made of Leeds overall since they were promoted?
I have an incredible opinion of Daniel. They have I think, a really good relation with him, and I know the league, Premier League is always like that. You are able to make a good runs of results, but at the end you can make a bad results and continue, because the opponents are tough. Every opponent is really prepared. They have a long weeks to prepare, and so it's so demanding. So you have to be ready.
Hi, Pep. When you say that the team didn't even try against Bayer, is this the kind of missed opportunity that you will keep in mind next time you need to decide which players you will give opportunities to?
No, I'm pretty sure that they surrounded for our players, they will play good. I think they felt they play to don't make mistakes, not to play to do I'm going to do something, and that is so difficult. So football you have to play. Defensive, offensive, you have to try, and you lose in the actions you did it. They play to be safe, to don't be, I'm making mistakes and I want to be noticed, and that's why it's so difficult.
Set the embargo there for 10:30 p.m. this evening. Someone start. Jack.
Let's start, though, with Manchester City. Pep Guardiola has spoken to the media in the last hour, who's criticised his squad for what he considers to be a lack of effort in their midweek home defeat to Leverkusen in the Champions League. That result followed last week's league loss at Newcastle.
You were quite honest after the game midweek. You repeated it there again, suggesting, taking responsibility for the selection. But also you said after the game that perhaps you were guilty of being too nice in giving the players too much, maybe selecting players in that first team, giving them too much responsibility on that night. Can we expect Pep to be a little bit less nice between now and Christmas?
No,
maybe?
No. Mom and Dad made me a beautiful person. I'm so nice. No, and it's not about that. It just we didn't try. So in football, when you play on the green, so you have to try things that we didn't try. That's all. So, maybe I'll have a theory to rotate. You have to rotate because it's impossible to sustain. But I thought I have a lot of confidence of them. Still, right now, I have a lot. I have a huge value what they are as a football players, and that, or maybe is higher than I think about them or them themselves. It was a good lesson for me. So even with quite experience as a manager, I have a good lesson for me for the future. I think they felt. They play to don't make mistakes, not to play to do I'm going to do something, and that is so difficult. So football you have to play. Defensive, offensive, you have to try, and you lose in the actions you did it. They play to be safe, to don't be I'm making mistakes and I want to be noticed, and that's why it's so difficult.